Welcome to another episode of The Financially Free Investor, where you will learn information and strategies on how to become financially independent by investing in real estate, something that is not taught openly in our society today. Financial freedom matters so you can live a bigger life, retire early, and do what matters most to you. Get ready to hear tried and true methods to becoming financially free with your host, Jordy Clark.
Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of the Financially Free Investor Podcast. I've got an awesome episode for you today. I've got a guest, Dane Kania. He is a local wholesaler, investor, landlord here in Salt Lake. And we kind of connected just over Instagram. And yeah, I thought that everyone would find value in his story because it's super relatable. It's maybe a couple years ahead of where most people are if they're starting out. And yeah, super excited to have you in, Dane.
Appreciate it, Jordy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I figured
that was awesome. Thanks for having me for sure.
Yeah, dude. It's great to share your story. You're further ahead than most people. And like, it really doesn't take that long to get there. Like you've seen, like.
No. I mean, you just kind of put a goal on it, right? And kind of chip away at that goal over time. But it's a lot easier than people think, right? And I think house hacking is like literally the best way to get started, especially if you don't have any money, you know, and I mean, with the loan programs that are out there, right? Like take advantage of it.
Dude, let's jump right in. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add other than the intro that I just gave for you?
No, not necessarily. We'll get into it for sure. You know, originally from Michigan, and I've been here for about 8 years now. About half of that is involved with real estate. But yeah, if I could provide some value to those that are looking to get into it, I certainly would love to help.
Cool. Well, just a side note, you still have a little bit of Michigan in you because I can hear it in the accent. So
I do get that sometimes.
That's awesome. It's good. It's who you are.
Yeah. Well, I lived in northern Michigan and then went to school in the Upper Peninsula. So I say that's pretty much Canada.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, let's jump into it. How'd you get started on your journey to financial freedom?
Sure. So moved here, it was 2014. I went to Northern Michigan University and got a marketing degree. And kind of typical story, right? Kind of thought that I had to go to school. I had to get out and get a good job and kind of live that molded life. But did that for a while, a couple years. When I moved here, I ended up getting a job for Wyndham timeshares. And that was kind of my introduction into the working world, corporate world. And I worked in the marketing department for about 2 years. And it was great. Prior to that, I did live in Michigan for 1 year after college. And I ended up doing some door-to-door marketing, which was a great introduction to get into sales. Learn how to talk to people, learn rejection, which was huge, which ultimately helped me into my sales position, marketing position with timeshare. Did that for 2 years with Wyndham. I ended up switching over to Hilton timeshare. So same thing, different company, and did that for about 4 years. And I kind of thought that was the end all be all. I thought I was going to climb the corporate ladder, and then soon kind of learned about real estate. And of course, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and started listening to Bigger Pockets, and everything kind of changed from there.
Okay. And what year was that in?
So started with Wyndham, would have been 2015,
okay.
Early 2015. So yeah, did that all the way up to 2019.
Cool. So then 2019, you read this book about a rich dad, a poor dad, your mind is blown and you're like, man, maybe there's an alternative route, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of the book that everyone kind of reads and gets into it. Ultimately, though, it was more so of an interaction with some other sales agents at the timeshare. I did the marketing, so I was that guy that set up the sales presentations. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been through that process, but a lot of these sales guys had their real estate licenses as well. And you know, chatting with them, they're like, "Man, I made more money doing side sales with real estate than I did at my time doing my sales position here at the timeshare." And it really made me start thinking that maybe there might be a better way. You know, it was a good position. It was a great introduction to get into sales, to learn to talk to people. But for me, I was looking for something a little bit more. And as I had those conversations with those sales agents, Started listening to their story. They started talking about their rental properties, the passive income that they were receiving from those. And it really stuck with me. And that's kind of where I thought, hey, maybe I should get my real estate license and try a different route.
Cool. So what'd you do from there?
So 2019, that was the year I was at Hilton at that point. I was talking to my wife and I just said, hey, I think I'm gonna shoot and get my license. And I proceeded to do that. Went to Stringham schools, got my license, and luckily within my first week of having my license, I ended up landing my first listing. So worked that, actually met, it was a guy that I worked with, his mother needed to sell her house up in Camas. Proceeded with that transaction and I made, I think it was around $8,000 on that transaction. And that kind of projected me into wanting to pursue this a little bit more. On the same note, I always knew I wanted to invest. And I learned about this concept of house hacking, through BRRRR, reading the forums and talking to other people that have done it. And I knew that was kind of the direction I wanted to take. So what we did was we went out and we found a duplex. It took about a month or two to find that property and just simply started writing offers. And luckily I came across this duplex in South Salt Lake. It was funny because I was having trouble getting the contract because I was using an FHA loan. So I decided to write the seller a letter. It was about a page letter and just kind of explain what my vision was and why I wanted to pursue this option. He had about five other offers on the table. A lot of them were cash, conventional, but ultimately what did it was the letter that I wrote to him, kind of explaining my vision of wanting to be an investor, and he gave me a shot. So we ended up buying the property. The cool part about that, obviously having your license, you can represent yourself on the transaction. So he was offering a 3% commission, and I ended up using that commission towards my down payment on the 3.5% FHA loan. So that basically covered my entire down payment aside from a few $1,000s. And we ended up getting into the property. I had no idea what I was doing at that point. I mean, the duplex needed work, but I knew that, my wife and I could move into one side and use that rent to kind of cover the majority of that mortgage while we figure it out.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you used the seller's commission.
Yep.
As your down payment. You get into this duplex. What was the purchase price?
So we bought that one for $325.
Okay.
Which, at that time in the market, that was about retail. There was tenants in there. We booted one out so we could move into the property. And I want to say that the rent from the other side covered about 75% of that mortgage.
Okay. So you're into a duplex, your own money, like $2,000 maybe with closing costs.
Right around that. Yep.
And do you remember what your rent was before you moved in?
What the renters were paying?
What you were paying in rent?
Oh, yeah. So we, at that point, we're living in an apartment off Foothill Drive. I want to say we were paying about $1,300.
Okay.
For, 1 bedroom, 1 bath apartment.
And then house hacking, because I think this is a super powerful strategy. In fact, I was out to dinner the other night with my buddy, Craig Kurlop, which he's like the house hacking dude from BRRRR. But like, this is exactly it. You were able to go from $1,300 a month in rent down to 25% of a mortgage that was probably like $1,700-1,800, right?
Yeah, actually, I think it was just over 2,000. Yep. Because we had the private mortgage insured, so it was a little bit higher.
Yeah. And then what were the tenants on the other side paying?
So we ended up raising the rent on them. I want to say we got them up to about 1,100 at that point.
Okay.
So we were paying about, I think it was like $800 or $900 between the two of us, my wife and I, to live there. And we, for those that are not familiar with the FHA owner occupied loan, you have to live in the property for at least 1 year. So we said, we're going to save a little bit of money, saved a few $100 a month, by getting into the house hacking situation. And we paid that $800-900 to live there for the year. And we kind of chipped away at some minor repairs that needed to be done.
Okay. So what'd you do next? You lived in it a year.
Yep. So next, I said, hey, this is a really good option, and we're kind of in the driver's seat here because I do have my license. And kind of to go back a little bit, it was funny because the minute that I bought that duplex, I kind of went out on a whim and I actually quit my job with timeshare and and kind of had the bug, right? So I said to my wife, I'm like, if we're gonna do it, this is the time. And from there, I kind of just focused on cold calling and starting my real estate career as being an agent and living off commissions. My wife is also in private or property management. So she works for AMC. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that company, big national property management company. And she manages a 600 unit apartment complex in Midvale, which we're a great fit. I mean, obviously me being in real estate, she knows how to handle tenants. So she kind of took charge of handling the renter and making sure everything was good there. But the only way I was able to buy that first property is because I had my W-2 income from the timeshare, which was great. It was good timing, made it happen. The problem with me quitting, as you know, is that you need at least 2 years of income in order to get that loan. So what we decided to do is said, hey, I love this strategy. This is going to get us, on the right path. You still have your W-2 income. Why don't you go ahead and buy the next property in your name? I'll represent you as an agent. And what we actually did was the same process. We found another duplex. I represented her. She acquired the loan, and I was able to gift her the 3% commission that they were offering to my wife as part of that down payment. So it was the same thing. I mean, we were just a couple thousand into our next duplex, and she ended up acquiring the property in her name.
Cool. So 2019, you bought duplex number 1.
Yep.
And the thing I want everyone who's listening to think about is, Dane, you and your wife, you made the decision to save $300 or $400 a month, which most people, they go, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal. Right. But then, maybe at the time it's not, but we're going to fast forward and kind of see where you guys are at now,
Sure.
Where they can see that, these base hits are really what get you to playing at a bigger and higher level. Right. So
Really.
Duplex number 2, you buy it 2020.
2020. Yep.
Was it before or after COVID?
It was just before COVID.
Just before the lockdowns. Okay.
Yeah. So we bought the second duplex. We're actually still living in this one currently.
Okay.
But yeah, we bought it. It was actually just right around the corner from our first duplex, which was kind of nice because we could, self-manage the other one and kind of stay on top of things. But yeah, like I said, we're living in this one still. Fast forward a little bit into that year as well, we got a little more creative with our third investment. And that was a triplex actually in the South Salt Lake area again. And we used private money for that one to actually acquire it and buy it cash.
Can you explain what kind of terms you got on the private money and how you found that lender?
Yeah, absolutely. There's hard money out there, right? That you can go. It's fairly expensive with higher interest rates, points that you would have to pay, used just like cash to basically go out and buy a property. I didn't necessarily want to pay that high in interest, so I got on the phone and I just thought about who I knew that had money, that has done well in life. Started calling some family friends. My mom knew a guy in Florida that I called, and I was terrified to make those calls. I didn't really know what to say or how I was going to pitch it. Was shut down quite a bit on a few of our conversations. And then I called another family friend in Michigan, and he's done very well in his life. He used to be in oil, and they've got a lot of money and whatnot. And I just said, hey, I've got this idea, and I was wondering if you wanted to partner on some projects in real estate, and kind of explain to him the market here in Utah. And he was happy to do it. He had a credit line through his bank at a lower interest rate. And we set up some terms that were lucrative to him, but still better than what I was going to be paying in hard money. And I, from there, basically acquired the commitment first from him and just said, hey, I'm coming across good deals out here in the market. If I come across something, do you want to partner? And he was all in. So we set it up a little bit differently with him, as where most hard money is, anywhere from 10 to 12%, as 2 points. I was actually able to get him down as low as 3.5% on interest and 2 points as well. So from there, being an agent, I got on the MLS. I started writing offers, came across a good deal in South Salt Lake. It was hammered. I mean, it was in pretty rough shape, and it scared a lot of the other investors away, and ended up negotiating this triplex actually for $400,000. And from there, I kind of utilized the BRRRR strategy, essentially, or that was going to be my plan, to acquire it, buy it, fix it up. It already had tenants in there. So to get around that, I actually raised the rents on them because they were all month to month, and shortly refinanced out of that within 2 months, and it appraised at 507. So there was enough essentially equity in that deal to cover my down payment and essentially get the house for free.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love free houses.
You gotta love it, right?
Yeah.
So
okay. And you bought that one 2020 as well?
That was 2021 as well. Yep.
Okay. Just the later end of 2020?
Correct.
After we figured out that we all weren't going to be zombies.
Right.
Okay.
So
cool.
Just to add one thing to that, doing some research on the BRRRR strategy. I mean, a lot of people think the only way to do it is to acquire 100% of your money back. We got close to that. We actually had an issue come up during the 2 months of ownership where the basement flooded, and that was a real eye opener. It was I kind of panicked there for a second. So we ended up having to pay, I think it was 15 to 20 grand to fix that problem, which took away from the 100% refi. So we did have to keep essentially some money into that for those unknown repairs. But at the end of the day, it's still way less than what I would go do traditionally and put 20-25% down on an investment property.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to find something that doesn't have a problem and you pay 500,000 for a triplex, put 25% down, you're 140,000. So if you can be into a deal for 20,000 versus 140,000, right, dude, that makes all the sense in the world.
So yeah, it was a good deal. It was a good learning experience. It just kind of shaped me into believing that there's other options out there. There's other ways to do it. You don't always have to go the traditional route, and it ended up working out for us.
Cool. That's good. So what's next, man? You've got 4, 5, 6, 7 units.
Well, 8 doors, 4 properties. So
okay.
To date, I have 2 duplexes, one in which we live in. We've got the triplex, and then we actually have a condo in Park City that we use solely for Airbnb. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So you bought that after the triplex?
Correct. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Is it a studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom?
So it's a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. Are you familiar with the Powderwood condos in Kimball Junction?
Yeah.
Yep. So right next to the outlet center in Park City, we picked that one up. It was turnkey. I mean, that thing was rehabbed. The prior owner was using it as an Airbnb themselves. And that was a relationship deal that how we acquired that property. I knew the agent. Funny enough, I was watching his Instagram story like a year prior about him setting up this Airbnb and his story and his process of doing so. And then I saw on the MLS that it hit the market, and I reached out to him and kind of chatted with him. He ended up getting I think 7 offers on that property within the first week, and basically just got him to open up to me about where I needed to be. And he was able to tell me, what the other offers were, what was important to him. And we kind of took all of that stuff and kind of made an offer that was lucrative to him. And that's kind of why we got the deal.
That's awesome. I think that's super important. And I want to highlight that real estate is way more of a relationship business than playing hardball or doing anything crazy. And so many agents and investors need to realize that, because it's been my experience that a lot of people are just so focused on this one deal that they don't realize, if you burn a bridge or have a bad transaction with somebody, or that sticks with you, and your name means a lot. And, we're jumping on this call partly to share all this information with other people, but, also we're going to jump into a one-on-one, coaching of what's next for you after the episode. But the important thing is, like, I've built my portfolio 100% based on relationships, right? Like, and it's funny how small the industry is, because, like, here's an example. And this is just to put a little bow on, relationships. Like, your first duplex you got, the triplex, all of this was based on relationships. So I'm buying a fourplex, a duplex, and a townhouse right now on 1031 exchange money. And funny enough, I was talking to a buddy who rehabbed this duplex, and he was like, yeah, I was going to keep this as a rental, but my circumstances changed. So I was like, well, send me the info. I'll take a look at it. I look at it. I like the deal. I was like, well, what are you going to list it for? I was like, okay, cool. Here's the contract. We put it under contract, and he knew I had other 1031 exchange money. So he's like, he was talking to another investor here in the area. That investor called me and he's like, hey, heard you have 1031 exchange money. And I was like, yeah, I do. So he's like, I've got a fourplex that we just picked up and I was going to rehab it and refinance it. Would you be interested in just picking it up from me? And I was like, yeah, send me the numbers. I'll take a look at it. Right. Same kind of thing. We backed into a number that made sense for him, made sense for me, based on both of our goals. And so often, like, I get people that message me and they're like, well, Jordy, like, why would you not just take all the deals for yourself?
Yeah.
Right. And it's such a small way of thinking, because, like, there's 1 million plus people that live in Salt Lake County.
Right.
Like, I can't, you can't, all the other big investors, small investors, like, no one can do all the deals. It's just impossible. But what we can do is we can all, like, help each other succeed. Yep. Right. And, yeah, sure. That means, maybe you make a commission by helping somebody else go and buy an owner occupied duplex because you've done it and you know how to do it. And, same kind of thing. Like, just because you're making a commission doesn't mean that they're getting a bad deal. Right. So just to put a little bow on this, funny enough, the guy I'm buying the fourplex from lent the guy I'm buying the duplex from money. So he's involved in both transactions and I didn't even know it. And then, like, it's just funny how it all, like,
it's a circle, right?
Yeah, it all ties together. And, like, everyone makes a few bucks and the world keeps going around if you have that mentality. But then there's the other people that, frankly, I think that they do 1 or 2 deals and then they just fizzle out because they don't get that this is a relationship business.
Yeah.
This is not do a deal and, make $1 million and then move on business. Because if that's how you view it, that's what your reality is going to be, versus guys like you, me, everyone else I know that's been successful and is in the game and will continue to be in the game, wherever the market takes us, because who knows, it's all going to be about relationships. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean, to that point, I mean, I'm working with a few clients right now to help them get into the house hacking method. And she said that same thing to me. She's like, well, Dane, if you're coming across such good deals, why aren't you keeping them all for yourself? And I explained to her, I'm like, I want to add value to you, but, sometimes the numbers don't make sense for me, whereas they're going to make sense for you to at least get into the first property and take that action. Right. But it's a community, right? As long as you keep having those conversations with the right people and letting people know what you're doing, deals will go around, and there's enough for everybody to get in, and it all starts with action and communication.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Cool, man. Well, let's wrap it up with 2 quick questions.
Yeah.
What is the one thing you'd want to tell someone who's working towards financial freedom?
Man, it's kind of your standard answer, and I kind of just went off it, but analysis paralysis is real. And, I certainly had my own share of it in the beginning, where I just kept digging in, kept reading the blogs, the forums, wondering, how am I going to do this? But it literally just took me committing and taking that first step with that duplex. Like I said, I was absolutely terrified. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I mean, looking back on that first deal, I mean, that trajected me towards where I am today. Right. I mean, for instance, that particular duplex is cash flowing me about $1,200 a month, after 4 years of being able to raise rents and kind of putting my expenses aside. I mean, that's a good amount of cash flow for your first deal. And if I would have been scared and just said, hey, I don't know if I can do this, I don't think I'd be in a position where I am today. So get out there, do your due diligence, but definitely take the step forward and take some action.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Cause you just to add to that, I think so often we get stuck in our own head and we immediately go to like worst case scenario. Like, well, if I buy this duplex, the person next to me is gonna, and we just go down the absolute worst case scenario that would ever happen. And reality is like, it's never going to happen. Right. But now the first duplex you bought, what do you think it's worth?
Man, I probably about 6 to 650.
Yep.
I'd say probably it doubled, in my ownership as far as value goes. And I did take an investment HELOC out on that property just to have some reserve funds, just in case I come across any good deals. But yeah, I mean, about doubled in value since my ownership.
Yeah. Well, just going back to that comment, most people are going to stop at, oh, well, I'm only saving a couple $100 a month, but now I have this hassle, right? But if you look at, a 5 or 10 year period instead of a 1 year period, that duplex now cash flows you $1,200 a month. It's added $325,000 to your net worth, which has given you the option to be able to take a HELOC out on it, which gives you the option to go and buy other deals at a good price, right? Obviously, you're only buying deals that make sense, but just one decision leads to another. And, you compound that over 10 years. And that's what most people don't focus on.
Yeah.
They don't focus on, what's this thing going to be worth in 10 years and how can that potentially affect change in my life? So, dude, I love that advice. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. One quick note and kind of a side note. That duplex has actually made me money in other ways. So we actually set up in all of our leases and we encourage home ownership. So we say, hey, if you want to rent this place from us, great. If you want to buy a house from me and I can represent you as an agent, we'll rip the lease up and not charge you any fee to leave. And I've actually been able to turn 3 tenants into buyers and receive a commission off them. And it's been great. And it's been lucrative for us to get more additional income from that property.
That's phenomenal. I love the buy with me, I'll tear your lease up for free strategy.
Yeah.
And if you're an agent and you're listening to this and you don't have rental properties, you need to rewind that and go listen to that, because how hard do we work as agents to go and find a lead and then, get them under contract and get them closed, where all you're doing is you're going to your tenant who you already have a relationship with.
Yeah.
This costs you nothing, by the way. You don't have to spend money on Zillow leads or anything like that. You literally just go to your tenant and say, I want the best for you. Let's get you into a house. And, most people I think want to own versus rent. There's definitely the eternal renters out there, and that's okay. But, given the chance, like most people just don't know how close they are to home ownership. And you turn that into, if an average commission's 10 grand, an extra $30,000 in income over 3 years.
Well, not to mention, there's referrals that come from that too, right? And I've actually already got referrals from those leads already. So it's just compounding over time. And it's been a great way. And we have that conversation up front as we're signing the lease. And we just say, hey, if you have goals of becoming a homeowner, let's make that happen. Until then, settle into my rental. We'll take good care of you and kind of go from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently on your journey towards financial freedom?
Networking has been a great source of meeting people. I kind of feared that in the beginning because I was essentially the new guy, right? I didn't get out and go shake hands and have conversations as much as I would have. So I think from the beginning, rather than digging into so much research, I just would have more conversations with people that are out there already doing it. And I think that might have changed some things as far as where I am today. But yeah, just get out there and start meeting people that are doing what you want to do. Cool.
That's great. Well, just a shameless plug. I don't get paid for this, but it's how I give back to the community. I help run SLRRIA and UVRIA.
Yep.
So SLRIA stands for Salt Lake Real Estate Investors Association. They meet once a month, second Wednesday of the month, I believe. If you want info on that, just go ahead and email me at the financiallyfreeinvestor@gmail.com and type in Real Estate Investor Association, and I'll send you all the info for the Salt Lake one. And if you're in Utah County, Utah Valley meets in Pleasant Grove the third Thursday of the month. Again, I don't get paid anything. It's just how we help other investors. And, like Dane said, we create a community, we network, we do deals together. It's a good time, and it will help you so that you don't always talk about investment real estate with your significant other like I used to. It gives you an outlet. It's awesome. So with that, we are going to put a bow on this thing, Dane. Thank you so much for recording this episode, and everyone have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Financially Free Investor. If you found value in this episode or know someone who would find value in this information, please share with them, subscribe, and send us a review.